Hi everybody, I'm Trish Christ. In this episode of Our Nashville, NECAT and our super crew of teenagers spend some time with Tennessee Women's Theater Project. Founder and artistic director Mariana Clark and her team are going to show and tell us all the cool things they do in our community. Are you ready, Mariana?
Yes.
You ready, super crew?
Yes.
Let's make the show.
It's our Nashville.
It's our Nashville.
It's our Nashville.
It's our Nashville.
We all know how to talk about our organization during meetings, but what about the chance encounter of a lifetime? You never know who may share your next elevator, notice your logo on a notebook or a tote bag, and ask what you do. What's the clearest, most persuasive thing you can say in a short elevator ride?
If theater holds a mirror up to nature, why are there not as many women's reflections in that mirror as I see around me? Tennessee Women's Theater Project exists to provide a more gender equitable view of the world because 51% of the population is female. But you do not see us in those numbers on the stage or on the big screen or on the small screen. And when we do appear, we are often sidekicks or, secondary support roles. My world doesn't look like that. And so I wanted to bring, like I said, a more realistic view of the world to tell stories of the human condition in the female voice, because we're not just mothers and wives and teachers and helpers. We drive the story at least 50% of the time.
I will confess to you, and I think we've chatted about this over the last 15 years or so. Even though I've been in theater my whole life, I did not notice that. And I can't be the only one. So it's important that we're here to sort of explain some situations to the world.
Yeah, I was talking to one of our actors early on. She was one of the first people we cast in one of the third or fourth show that we did. And she said, well, why? And I explained to her. And I said, did you ever wonder why you're not cast a lot? It's because there are not a lot of roles for women. If I come back in some other life, I want to be an actor, but I think I might have to be a man, because you can be half as talented and work twice as much because there are more roles. There are more roles for men than there are for women.
If you go to an audition here in Nashville, I don't know exact numbers, but it feels like 9 out of 10 people there to audition are female, and there might be 2 out of 10 roles that are female. That part I definitely see in the audition pool. Oh gosh, there's a lot of women here.
Yeah, it's maybe 65 male, 35% female, and that's like across the board. Mm-hmm. The New York State Council for the Arts did a white paper study years ago, and that's what they found, that, there are, not only are there more men on stage than there are women on stage, but men's plays get to be produced more often than women's plays.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Crew?
Even as far as stage managers, designers, in professional theater, they tend to be filled by men rather than women. Even in some cases, costume design, which you think of as, a woman's area, even some of the costume designers are.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how you had the idea, and not just the idea, the gumption to form a theater company to start to shift these percentages you're talking about.
I had been struggling as an actor in Nashville after I started to have some voice problems with my singing voice. I was also working, my day job was as a legal secretary. Just a little bit of background. We have a daughter who is now almost 30, it's kind of scary. She started her life as our niece. Her biological mother was Chris's sister. And Chris's sister was killed in a car accident when Kate was just past her 6th birthday. But about a year after she came to live with us, she came with me to an audition. And it was one of those auditions where there was a role for 1 woman, 5 men, and about 3 men and 20 women showed up for the audition. So in the car on the way home, Kate's sitting in the back seat in her little booster seat, and this sweet voice I hear from the back seat, and she says, "When I grow up, I want to be just like you." Aw, especially, considering our situation, that she had been with us for just a year. And then she said the words that changed my life forever. She said, "I want to act and I want to type." And in that moment, right?
That's how she was summing up what you do.
Yes, and in that moment, I realized that I had to give her something more to aspire to than that. But
although typing will get you a job anywhere.
That's true. And I still use that skill. But I didn't know what that would be, and it took several years for that seed that she had planted to germinate and grow. And one day I was folding towels, and the idea for Tennessee Women's Theater Project just popped into my head. And so I stopped folding towels and I went to Chris and I said, my husband, "Do you think this is a good idea?" And he said, "Yes." And then I talked to friends, men and women, and asked if, what they thought of the idea, and everyone was very supportive. So I went back to college as an adult learner, and I finished my degree in theater with a minor in entrepreneurship because, it's a business. So I graduated from MTSU, the first person in my family to graduate from college, and my family in New Jersey came down to watch one of like 1,200 people drop across the stage and get my diploma. And with the money they gave me as graduation gifts, I filed the 501c3 paperwork because it's not cheap to start a nonprofit.
Or to keep one going.
Right.
What year was that you officially founded?
2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we didn't do our first production for about 4 years because it took me that long to raise enough money to pay for a production because when I was an actor, I had worked, as you well know, for next to nothing sometimes, and in professional theater, next to nothing. And I knew that if I ever was in a position to pay actors, I couldn't do that to them, that they had to be paid a decent wage for their talent. So it took a while to raise that money. So I think our first production was in 2005.
Let's talk a little bit about the different roles involved in a production, both performance roles and crew roles and so forth. How many people come together for you on a typical production?
It depends on what the production is. We did our first musical in 2017, and we work with a very good, very small crew because I like to pay everybody. And the bigger the crew, the bigger the budget, and we just don't have that kind of money in our budget. So we usually have the director, that's me, a stage manager, sound designer, someone to run lights and sound. That's one of those is usually me. A producer. For the musical, we had a musical director and a choreographer.
So that's a big bunch of folks who are putting time and effort and expertise on the line on behalf of Tennessee Women's Theater Project.
And I tried to make as many of those positions as I can women. So our stage manager is always a woman. I always hire a woman because it's just, there's something about being a woman where you don't even have to finish your sentence, She just gets what it is that you want.
Yes, I do know that.
The sound designer is generally my husband because we have that same kind of relationship. I don't have to finish my sentences. He knows what I want. And then we look for, and I'm sorry, I forgot one key person, and that is the costume designer. So look for designers who are women, because often they don't get a chance to do that in a lot of other places.
I am Katie Gant. I'm a lighting designer for Tennessee Women's Theater Project. I've been working on and off for the company since one of their first shows, and I've been doing lights for them, and I stage managed a little bit, but my main focus is lighting design, so I've done a lot of lighting design for them. I like Tennessee Women's Theater Project because though it's a smaller company, I like the shows that they do, and I like the message that they have. They use a lot of local people, and they try to use different people, and they try to reach a different audience, like, you know, people that don't normally see themselves in a play. They can come see something at Tennessee Women's Theater Project, and they can see a story about them. So it's a lot of different stories that you're not normally going to hear in other places, which I think is pretty cool. So, and I like working with Marianne and Chris. You know, they're awesome, and it's always a fun time. So the whole art imitating life is actually kind of a true thing. I know that I work with kids and I work with different people, and seeing movies that the kid can relate to, that's a really important movie, right? And so you come and see theater, and it's the same type of experience. You come and see theater, and you see someone on stage, and you're like, whoa, okay, I understand something about myself, or I see myself in them, or you say, I had no idea that this was a thing. You know, I watched this movie, or I watched this play, especially when you come see live theater. You watch the play, and you're in the room with the people, with the emotions in front of you. You can really learn a lot about yourself and a lot about everything around you.
My name is Alexis Levon, and I'm the stage manager for Tennessee Women's Theater Project. A stage manager is, I always like to say, it's the hub of the wheel. You have a wheel and you have different spokes. So the stage manager is the center of the wheel. And basically what we do is we connect all of the departments. We're the right hand to the director, and we just make sure that from the actors to the props mistress to the costume to technical with lighting and sound, we just make sure everybody has what they need and that everything flows, so that the production, whether it's a play or a musical, goes off without a hitch and very seamless, and we just execute everybody's vision and make sure everybody stays on task. I like the mission. I like anything that puts women in the forefront, because we know this is a male-dominated industry with film and theater, and so anything where women we can take the lead on is great for me, and I will fully 100% support it. Not saying we can't work for men too, but you know, girl power always rocks. And like I say, I really love their mission statement. Mariana has a knack for finding stories that you probably have not heard of. And so just executing and putting us to screen is just awesome, because, you know, they're stories that we don't normally know about. You know, the thing about Nashville and theater is that they tend to do the classics a lot, and that's great. But I always like to see new work, because it's so much. Classics are great, but we always need to infuse that with some new work and just, you know, things that make people think. And that's what I love about her project so much, is that they actually make you think. So theater matters because, especially in the world that we're living in, art matters, you know. It's just a way to give a voice to the voiceless. It's a way to get people, everybody kind of thinks that it's for extroverts, but honestly it's for introverts too. You know, it's for, I think that as far as the skills with our kids, it gives them the opportunity to be able public speaking, to be comfortable in front of large audiences and groups, to interact and be able to communicate with your body and your heart and your mind. And just the interaction and those skills, especially if we teach them at such a young age, they use this going forward as adults. I mean, I was in theater, and I can tell you right now, going on job interviews and just talking to people and engaging and interacting, all those skills you learn in your drama camp, you actually use as an adult. And math, you do too, science sometimes, history, and, you know, but art, you use it every day, you know, and just that bridge of bringing people that you probably wouldn't put them together, you know. I love the idea of the high school jock hanging out with the nerds, you know what I mean? And when you put them all in the theater, it does not matter what your popularity status is. You all are on the same plane, and you have to learn. And it just, it takes away all those labels and just makes it one big family. And we need that. We need that in art.
How do you choose which shows to do? How many do you get to pick a year, for example?
We do 4 productions a year. We do 2 plays. And in the last several years, we've done a special Christmas show, and that's the same one every year. And then we do a festival of work created by women. That's women's work, and we do that. We used to do it in the spring, now we do it in the fall, in September. So I read plays, and you might think that if it has a large female cast or a predominantly female cast, that it would be perfect for us. But for some reason, they don't always work out. I mean, they always have to have, the shows we produce always have to have at least as many women as men. More is fine.
Sure.
So I read things, and then it sounds weird to say, but the plays I produce are all plays that speak to me in some way that I can't just put aside and leave it. They keep pestering my brain, read me again, think about producing me. And the ones that I produce are the ones that, as I'm reading them, I can see them. I can see what they're going to look like on stage. So
Yes. Women's work, I know, is very popular, and I think there's a clever little wordplay in what you have named women's work. My dad's in his 90s, and if my dad were to use the phrase women's work,
it would mean something completely different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be a little derogatory.
Yeah.
He would be joking,
Yeah.
but he would mean laundry or
Right.
making him a meal or something
Right,
like
right.
that. But that's not what you mean by women's work.
No, women's work came out of, it's like I have this little muse that speaks to me sometimes, and she comes to me at moments with Tennessee Women's Theater Project, at moments when I really need a good idea. About 10 years ago, one morning, I bent over the sink to wash my face, and my leg just exploded in pain. I had a trip to the hospital in an ambulance.
Oh my gosh.
I spent 10 weeks on the couch because I couldn't make it up the stairs. I was using a walker. And this was we were right in the middle of doing a very popular show of ours, Nickel and Dimed. It was one of our best attended shows. And we had something planned for the spring, but I knew that, as the weeks wore on, I was not going to be able to direct a show. I just wasn't going to have the stamina for it. So I sent out an email to just everybody I knew that said, this is what's going on.
I think I got that email.
You may have. Does anybody have anything they would like to put on the stage? And I got a flood of stuff, and I read through it and picked what would work, and not everything was going to work for the stage. So, and that was the first year that we did it. We filled up 11 nights with 11 different evenings of entertainments. We had music and poetry and plays, and what else did we have? We had dance. We had a whole night of dance. That's become one of our most popular nights of women's work. We had some visual art in the lobby, and that was the first year that we did it. And I thought, well, this is going to be an annual event, and it's great. Every year we get different stuff, and I love it.
You use a phrase that now is dear to me, but I remember the first time I ever heard this term was when I was in college in a literature class, and the teacher said something about the human condition, and I thought, what on earth is the human condition? Are we talking about like the plague, or is it some? I had no, as a young person, I had no concept of what that might possibly mean, and now that's the kind of plays I want to see, that I want to act in, books that I want to read. They are about this nebulous concept of the human condition. What is that? What does that mean, the human condition?
Nebulous, yes, first. A lot of things can fall under that umbrella. So people tend to think of plays that have majority women in it speak to women's issues, and that men can speak to a broader, more universal,
Any issue.
right? That women's voices are specific and men's voices are universal. So And that universal aspect is the human condition, the things that go on in people's lives that are not gender specific. However, when you think that only men can speak to things that are not gender specific, it's a great disservice to women's voices and women's stories, because we have just as much to offer on a universal level as men do. Right?
Of course.
Yeah.
It seems so obvious to me and you.
It does. And yet, you know, I will have people say to me, well, Tennessee Women's Theater Project, so is it just for women? Do you just exclude men? No, no, the stories very often involve men. But the women don't serve supporting roles or sidekicks. They drive the stories.
Your organization is called Tennessee Women's Theater Project, not Tennessee Anti-Man's Theater
Right,
Project.
right. I love men. I'm married to one. You know?
My name is Chris Clark. I am a board member for Tennessee Women's Theater Project. I help produce the shows, and I lift heavy objects for the company. I'm not going to let gender stand in my way. This is the best idea I know in theater. Females are 51% of the population. Females are not in the center of the stage that much of the time. They stand by and wait to be rescued. We know that's not real life, and so Mariana had the idea for this company, and it's a giant spark that won't go out, and so we're very proud to do whatever it takes. The theater we do is the best we can possibly bring to the stage. It is almost always something that's new to Nashville. Sometimes it's a play that Mariana, as the artistic director, has commissioned to be written because she found a story that wasn't being told already. So we're going to educate the audience to things that have not happened in town without being strident about it, without shaking our fingers in people's faces. What we're going to do is educate the audience that women are the strong ones too, and women are the storytellers too. We work hard to try and be members of the community, not just the people who show up and unlock the doors and put on a show and then disappear again. So one of the things we do, this recreation center is busy every day after school. Hundreds of children come in here, and so part of what we do to earn the right to use the theater is conduct professional storytelling and theater craft classes for the children who spend after school hours here. It's kind of a cafeteria. They can play basketball, roller skate, get help with their homework, do something in the library, or learn storytelling until their parental unit picks them up. So we have a short time with them, but we have professional teachers who are already skilled at teaching young people, are very skilled at teaching theater arts and storytelling. And so when we can gather them together, they leave with a little more power over their own stories than they had when they walked in.
For someone who might be watching us right now, wanting to get involved, what might they do to support your work?
Sure. First of all, get on the mailing list so they know about what we're going to produce. We, at a performance just lately, somebody said, you know, I've been in Nashville for 5 years and I didn't know about Tennessee Women's Theater Project. I know,
well,
right?
Not by any fault of you for reaching out. You're very good at marketing the company.
I try. But, you know, we've got all these new people moving into town, and it's so hard for them to learn about local theater because we're not covered in the local media the way we used to be.
That's right.
So get on the mailing list and then come out to our shows, bring friends to see the shows. We also need board members who are willing to be cheerleaders and surrogates for the company. If you're one of the big organizations, it's easy to attract board members because there's some cachet that goes along with being on the board of, you know, a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. We have no cachet to offer, but we will offer you a good experience and work that means something.
Here we are at my favorite part of the whole episode. It's the speed round of questions.
Uh-oh.
Just like we might play in theater, just like we might have played when we were kids, where I ask you a question and literally the first answer that comes to your mind let it fly, and we'll jump on to the next one.
That could be dangerous.
It could be dangerous with you. I'm excited about that.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Speed round with Mariana Clark. Which of the following iconic female stage characters was created by a female? Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Sally Bowles from Cabaret, or Lady Macbeth from Macbeth?
Is this a trick question?
Maybe.
None.
None. None, yes.
Yeah.
Name an iconic female character who was created by a woman.
Olympe de Gouges.
Ooh, I don't know that.
She is she is actually a real life character. I mean, she's a real life person. She was a female playwright during the French Revolution, and Lauren Gunderson used her in a play called The Revolutionists, which was for women during the French Revolution, and it's a wonderful play. Lauren Gunderson is probably my favorite playwright.
You've done The Revolutionists.
We have.
Yes, yes. How would you describe her work?
Eclectic. Yeah.
Neat. Name 2 traits that make a good playwright.
Insight and kindness.
Name 2 traits that make a good director.
Insight and kindness.
This is a surprise one here, I'm sure. Name 2 traits that make a good actor.
Yeah, I would say the same.
agree.
Insight and kindness.
What mark do you want Tennessee Women's Theater Project to make on our community?
Oh, gosh. Speed, you say. I would like the company to be remembered for opening doors for women, whether it's in, the general life of people or whether it's in the life of the theater.
And my last question is a very easy one. What's your website?
www.twtp.org.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's our Nashville.
It's our Nashville.